It's my second favorite time on the NHL calendar. Playoff hockey is back. Let's talk Western Conference. This video is in partnership with Buzzer Sports. I've teamed up with them to create some NHL playoff content for their social medias. So this video is just going to be briefly talking about the different Western Conference playoff teams, and if you want to get my takes on the series for the first round, definitely go out and check their social media links down in the description. I have my phone here because I have quite a few stats, and there's no way that this brain is going to remember all of them. I can barely remember my own cell phone number. It's an issue. Starting off with the President Trophy winning Nashville Predators, last year's Stanley Cup runner-ups are back with the same deep core, which has now been bolstered with the addition of Kyle Turris, and Mike Fisher has come out of retirement. Crazy depth here. They've got Ryan Johansson, Kyle Turris, Nick Bonino, and Mike Fisher down the middle, and PK Subban, Roman Josi, Ryan Ellis, and Matthias Ekholm as a top four. And oh yeah, they have a tandem of Pekka Rinne, who is a Vezina candidate, and Juuse Saros, who is a very capable second goalie. I firmly believe that it takes two goalies to win Lord Stanley in case of injuries, or you just need to switch up goalies every once in a while because every game matters. The player to watch for Nashville for me is going to be Kyle Turris. Last year, I don't believe that they got enough depth scoring out of their top six, and Kyle Turris should bolster that. He had a great run in last year's playoffs with Ottawa, scoring 10 points in 19 games, and he's posted 42 and 65 this year. If you're wondering what got them into the playoffs, it's obviously their depth. They had great goaltending this year as they were first in the league at 5-on-5 save percentage with the .935. They were a great possession team at 5-on-5, controlling 51.48% of all shot attempts. Their PK was running at 81.9%, and their power play was operating at a 21.2%. Nashville is my pick to win the Cup this year, as I don't see them having too many weaknesses, but if I had to pick one, it would be their 299 times shorthanded. That leads the league. For me, the biggest reason that the Preds will win the Stanley Cup is their depth on defense. Roman Josi, PK Subban, Matthias Ekholm, and Ryan Ellis is just not fair. They're good in their own end. They're unbelievable at pushing the pace and bringing pucks up in transition, and they can also put the pucks in the net. Those four have combined for 49 goals this year. Second are Philadelphia, Columbus, and Arizona, as their top four has combined for 43, so that's a 6-goal difference. Looking at the Winnipeg Jets, they've been the only good thing about Manitoba winters. They're making the playoffs for the first time since 2014-2015, and their franchise is still looking for their first ever playoff victory, dating all the way back to 1999 when they were brought into the league as the Atlanta Thrashers. They've acquired Paul Stastny this year at the trade deadline, and in my opinion, they are Canada's best hope at bringing back the Stanley Cup to Canada. Don't hate me, Toronto fans, your time is coming. So looking at their lineup, if you're still drooling 4 hours after looking at their forward core, please seek a medical professional. They're quite a unique team as they have a very solid core of older players already in Blake Wheeler, Brian Little, Mark Scheifele, Dustin Byfuglien. But after a couple good years of low draft picks and making smart draft picks with Patrick Laine, Nick Ehlers, Kyle Connor was a great pick in the mid-first, that youth has insulated that veteran core to the point where their offensive core, now with Paul Stastny as well, is just ridiculous. For me, my player to watch is going to be Connor Hellebuyck. His story has been well documented, where he's trained very hard over the summer to find a new gear in his game, and it's shown. He's 10th in the league in save percentage with a .924 with 6 shutouts, and he'll be the key to Winnipeg's playoff run in his first ever playoff series. So what got them into the playoffs? Pretty simple, goals. They have 5 20-goal scorers on the team. Laine with 44, rookie Kyle Connor with 31, and Nick Ehlers has 29. They're second in the league with goals scored with 273. Looking at their weaknesses, again, I'll go back to Connor Hellebuyck, who could be their key, but it could also be their kryptonite. Not only is this his first ever playoff run, but they have worked him to the bone. He is first in ice time out of all goalies, and he is third in the league in shots faced. If fatigue gets to him, or the pressure cooker of being in a Canadian market during the playoffs gets to him, I don't know if I trust Steve Mason to pick up the pieces. One reason the Jets will win the Stanley Cup this year is that they rank 4th in the league in power play goals with 64, and their power play is clicking at a 23.4%, good for 5th overall. They've also drawn the 3rd most power plays in the league with 274, so that is going to be a huge weapon for them. The Jets are an offensive juggernaut, and they finally have the capable goaltending to potentially go far, fingers crossed. Vegas has been one of the craziest sports stories this year, and they are absolutely, without a doubt, one of the best expansion teams out of any of the major 4 sports in North America. I have no idea what Gerard Gallant is doing. Maybe it's just team bonding on the Vegas Strip has really brought up team chemistry, but whatever's happening, everyone knows the role and are executing it to a T. Going into their lineup analysis, obviously their depth is their calling card. They have gotten contributions from everywhere throughout the lineup. Their bottom is a little thin, though, in the fourth line, and that may get exposed over a 7-game series where tactical adjustments can be made. Defensively, they've got a good group led by Colin Miller and Nate Schmidt points-wise, but there's no stud defenseman, which will be really interesting to see how they go about that in the playoffs, as I believe that is a huge factor to having any playoff success whatsoever. And of course, in net, you have Marc-Andre Fleury, the 3-time Stanley Cup winner. The player that I'll be watching out for in Vegas is Nate Schmidt. I want to see if his regular season success can translate into a playoff game. He had 36 points in 76 games and led the Knights in ice time at 5-on-5 per game, and he continually faces the opposing team's best players as he is second on the team in quality of competition. I really believe in having a true star on defense that can settle down teams after conceding a couple quick goals. What got the Knights into the playoffs? Well, scoring by committee. 5 players hit 50 points and another 2 hit 40. Oh yeah, William Karlsson had 43 goals. 268 goals for, 5th in the league. They've gotten production from everywhere throughout the lineup, and that has allowed the Vegas Golden Knights to win the Pacific Division. Looking at their weaknesses, again, like I've said, they're a very balanced team, but I don't really see any true stars, especially on the back end, which is the real concern for me, as I really advocate for a Drew Doughty type, someone who can log big minutes in every situation and can take over games. Going back to the Stanley Cup Finals for Vancouver in 2011, Dan Hamhuis was a huge loss, probably the 4th worst loss we could have had aside from Luongo and the Sedin twins. Maybe Ryan Kessler's up there too. Ryan Kessler and Dan Hamhuis right up there. There were a couple times in that series where Boston scored a couple quick ones, and you could feel the Canucks really start to panic, and if Dan Hamhuis was in that series, maybe he could have just settled them down a bit to stop the bleeding. One reason the Knights could win the Stanley Cup, Marc-Andre Fleury and his 3 Stanley Cup rings. He has the veteran leadership to lead this team, and when a good goalie gets hot at the right time, championships can be won. He's also playing some of the best hockey of his career, as he has a .927 save percentage. Minnesota. That was a terrible accent, I'm sorry, but Bruce Boudreau is at it again. Potentially one of the most unluckiest coaches. He's been able to coach some of the best teams in the salary cap era, the Washington Capitals and the Anaheim Ducks, but just has not been able to do it. Doesn't really look like he's going to be able to do it this year either with the team he has, especially with Ryan Suter being out. That's a huge loss, especially since he most nights racks up 35 minutes in the playoffs. Looking at their lineup, I actually really like their forward core. They have a nice mix of veterans and younger players. Eric Staal, Zach Parise, Mikko Koivu, Matt Cullen, there to insulate the likes of Jordan Greenway and Joel Eriksson-Ek. They have 4 very solid playoff lines that don't need to be sheltered. On defense, obviously, like I said, Ryan Suter is a massive blow, and it'll be interesting to see how Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, and Matt Dumba will be there to clean up the pieces. And in net, you have Devin Dubnyk, who is fully capable of stealing games, which is pretty much going to be a must if Minnesota wants to win against the Winnipeg Jets. So the player that I'll be watching out for on the Wild is Zach Parise. He missed the first half of the season due to a back injury. It was questioned if he would ever play again, but since returning, took him a while to get back up to speed, but in his last 18 games, he has 15 points, and he is going to need to provide depth scoring for the Wild. Eric Staal can't do it all by himself. Speaking of Eric Staal, he is the reason why the Wild are in the playoffs right now, Eric Staal's renaissance. Easily the league's best contract, Staal hit 40 goals for the first time in his career since 2009, and he added another 34 assists for 76 points. It's his 3rd highest point total in his career at the age of 33. Weaknesses. The defense is obviously going to be a weakness without Ryan Suter. Obviously, it's going to be impossible to replace him. It's going to be a group effort, but it's really going to be up to Matt Dumba, the 23-year-old who's put up 50 points this year. He's already 2nd on the team in time on ice per game at 5-on-5, but he'll have to pick up some of the rope that Sutter has left behind. He's already being given the most defensive zone starts as well, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do in a playoff series. This is really where his career will be defined. One reason the Wild could win the Cup is their veteran experience. Eric Staal, Mikko Koivu, Zach Parise, and Matt Cullen have all combined for 320 playoff games and 4 Stanley Cups. Their best players need to be their best players and lead their young guys if they want to have any success in the postseason. Anaheim is coming into the playoffs as one of the hottest teams, winning 10 of their last 12. They were extremely hampered by injuries this year, as it seemed like every one of their key guys was affected, and as such it got them off to a bit of a slow start to get their feet underneath them. They also have a new leading scorer on the team, Rickard Rakell, and it's the first time since 2011-2012 since Ryan Getzlaf hasn't led the team, but it's only 8 less points and 21 less games. Cam Fowler and Kevin Bieksa will be out for the first round of the series, 2 big blows on their defensive core. Looking at their lineup, they have 3 lines that can score. They have an elite top 6, and the addition of Adam Henrique earlier in the year and the emergence of Ondrej Kase has given them an elite third line. On defense, they have a very, very solid top 4, even without Cam Fowler, as Francois Beauchemin can slot right in. 4 of their defensemen have reached 30 points this year, so they're getting quite the contributions from the back end. And of course, John Gibson has had a fantastic season this year. 8th in the league in save percentage, 7th in the league in saves, and they've also got Ryan Miller for some veteran leadership in the crease with the .928 save percentage in 28 season appearances. To me, the player to watch is going to be Ryan Kesler. He only put up 14 points in 44 games, but Kesler is a playoff performer. No matter what he's done to the Canucks, I respect his drive and intensity during the playoffs, and he always is able to pick up his game into a second gear and even take over playoff series. That is going to be the key if the Ducks want to go far. Ryan Kesler has to become Ryan Kesler, put the team on his back. Through all the injuries they've had to endure this season, what got them into the playoffs has been their very, very strong tandem in net with John Gibson and Ryan Miller. As a tandem, they have the second best save percentage in the league at .933 on a team that's been outpossessed. John Gibson, of all the goalies who have faced 1,800 shots this year, he sits second in save percentage only to Pekka Rinne. The Ducks have also given up the 3rd most shots against in the league, so it'll be very interesting to see if he can keep up this style of play in the playoffs, as according to Corsica Hockey, he is 2nd in the league in goals saved above average. As far as weaknesses goes, this might be a cop-out, but it's going to come down to injuries for the Anaheim Ducks, especially going up against the heavy San Jose Sharks in the first round. One reason they'll win the Cup is their depth. Like I've said, they have an elite top 6 and a great, great third line. Their top 4 is solid, and once Fowler comes back, it's even better. And John Gibson has been one of the best goaltenders in the league this year. He could steal the Stanley Cup for them. Moving on to San Jose, they are the Washington Capitals of the Western Conference. They just can't seem to put together 16 wins when it matters most. To make matters worse, Joe Thornton is injured to start the playoffs. But looking at their lineup, their veterans are still showing that they have what it takes to get it done with Joe Pavelski, Brent Burns, and Logan Couture. But they also have a great third line with Kevin Labanc and Timo Meier, which has added another dimension that the Sharks haven't had recently, where they've really gotten solid, reliable depth scoring. On defense, you can't forget about the Vlasic-Braun pair. They've really allowed the rest of the team, especially Brent Burns, to focus on offense. They have the 5th lowest offensive starts out of all pairings that have played at least 500 minutes together at 5-on-5. For me, the player to watch is going to be Evander Kane, acquired at the trade deadline. This is his first ever playoff run. I want to see how he does. Since that trade, the Sharks are 2-6-1, and Evander Kane has put up 9 goals and 5 assists. So far, the trade has gone really well for the Sharks. Let's see if it can continue into the playoffs. So what got the Sharks into the playoffs? It's going to be the young guys, the guys under 25. Tomas Hertl had 46 points, Chris Tierney had 46, Kevin Labanc had 40, Timo Meier had 36, and Jonas Donskoy had 36 points as well. Their weakness is going to be their power play. They've gone 13 for 83 since February. 15.6 is not good enough. But on the flip side, they have one of the best penalty kills in the league, ranking 2nd place at 84.8%. They're also a very, very disciplined team, as they've only been shorthanded 224 times, good for 4th in the league. Special teams will make or break the San Jose Sharks and their cup run. And now we get to the Los Angeles Kings, who find their way back into the playoffs on the back of Anze Kopitar and a Hart Trophy caliber season that saw him with 92 points. Dustin Brown has had a resurgent year, scoring 61 points, setting career highs in both assists and points. They have bona fide stars in the 3 big positions, that being center with Anze Kopitar, defense with Drew Doughty and Jonathan Quick. And they've proven in the past that all they have to do is make the playoffs to make noise. They're going to be a scary team to watch out for. Jake Muzzin is obviously a huge blow to their top 4, but hopefully he won't be out for too long. And Dion Phaneuf is a much-needed bonus on the 3rd pairing. They have a depth. And of course, Jonathan Quick in net, a Conn Smythe winner with something to prove, as he didn't have the best playoffs 2 years ago. The player to watch on the LA Kings is going to be Adrian Kempe. the Kings need scoring depth, and that third line of Adrian Kempe and Tanner Pearson is going to be where it comes from. That duo so far is outscoring the opposition 21-13, and in Kempe's first full season, it'll be very interesting to see what he can do in the playoffs. So how did they make it here? Well, John Stevens has worked wonders on this team. They were always a good possession team and a good structure defensively, but they just could not score last year, scoring 199 goals on 7.8% of their shots. This year, that number is up to 237 goals, converting at 9.3% of their shots, right around league average, so John Stevens has done a great job getting more offense out of this group. However, offense is still a weakness for the Kings. They sit 16th in the league in goals for and 17th in the league on the power play. If Kopitar and Brown falter, I am worried about where the depth scoring is going to come from, as I said, Adrian Kempe and Tanner Pearson are not proven in the playoffs. 3 players have hit the 20-goal mark, and then you have Kempe with 16, Pearson with 15, Lewis with 14, and Carter with 13, and only 8 skaters have hit double digits. If the Kings are going to win their 3rd Stanley Cup this decade, it's going to be because of their defensive play. They've let in the least amount of goals in the entire league and have the best penalty kill as well. They're also 8th best in shots against per game and 5th in 5v5 save percentage. Lastly, we have the guys that are just happy to be here, the Colorado Avalanche. Really, all you need to know is that Nathan MacKinnon put this team on his back with the help of Mikko Rantanen and 84 points. Unfortunately, Semyon Varlamov is expected to miss the entire first round, so if this isn't David versus Goliath already, damn. The Avalanche are obviously very top-heavy, like one of the most top-heavy teams I've ever seen, and it'll be up to the youngsters like Tyson Jost, Alex Kerfoot, and JT Compher to really pick up some of the slack and provide some depth scoring. On defense, it's not too pretty either, as you really only have Tyson Barrie and a merry band of misfits. Sam Girard's nice, and it's just kind of a lot to expect a 19-year-old defender to step into a playoff scene and put up a top 4 performance right away. In goal, you have Jonathan Bernier and Andrew Hammond, because Semyon Varlamov is injured. Bernier's had a great season this year, posting a .913, but man, that tandem is not going to hold up in the playoffs. The player to watch for me is going to be Tyson Jost. Can he alleviate some of the pressure off of the first line and give teams another line to worry about in the matchup game? If not, the Avalanche, not going to go well. What got the Avs into the playoffs? Well, Nathan freaking MacKinnon and his 97 points in 74 games. That's 107 points over an 82-game season. That top line has been monstrous for them, as they've outscored opposition 48-27 at even strength over 700 minutes of ice time. When those 3 are not on the ice, the picture is not as pretty, as the team is a -3 at 5-on-5 and only controls 46.26% of the shot attempts. As far as weaknesses goes, it's pretty simple. They're just not deep enough. They're going to get exposed. Nathan MacKinnon and Tyson Barrie can only play so many minutes. They're also missing defenseman Eric Johnson, which just makes matters worse, and there's just a bunch of question marks at forward. And oh yeah, no Semyon Varlamov. How can the Avs win the Stanley Cup? Well, it's going to be a tall task, but it's going to have to be the top line is just too much to contain, and the rest of their lines are able to tread water enough to keep their heads above. They drew the most amount of penalties this year, and their 8th ranked power play could be a key factor. They're going to have to win games 5-4. That's it for this video. Sorry for it being a bit all over the place. It was kind of last minute, especially with school, but I wanted to get something out for you guys. Don't expect an Eastern Conference playoff preview. I'm just doing the Western Conference for Buzzer Sports, so that's what you're getting. Please be sure to check out Buzzer Sports and all of their social media. A link will be down in the description. Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'll be posting videos there talking about the playoff series in the Western Conference. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you guys next time.